Alright guys, TEDCorp here back again today. Hope you're enjoying your Monday so far, and today we've got to talk about this past weekend's London home series. Concluded yesterday, Dallas Empire take down the championship in pretty much the most dominant fashion we have seen any team win any event this entire season. 12-in-1 map count in very impressive stuff. Then again, somewhat overshadowed by this whole server discussion that we will talk about today. There was talk about, well, of course, going into the World Championships, we want the online arena to be as perfectly competitive as it possibly can be, which means that the teams in an ideal world are equal distance away from where the server is going to be located, such that the ping difference isn't particularly great, as well, of course, in an ideal world that would be the case. However, that is not what we sit in right now. Clayster talks about after even winning the event how against the Paris series, you know, it was very difficult for Paris to even have a chance in this one given the ping differential that they were playing on, given the servers that are currently available. Clayster and others do give some potential solutions to this one as well. Intrigued to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new. Big thank you to Cam Allen as well for the scoreboards we're going to be going through today. Let's crack on with things. Series 1 being Paris Legion versus the London Royal Ravens. And this was a cracker. This was the best series of the day by a country mile, to be honest. And, well, Royal Ravens, the amount of choke that this team has done over the course of this year and these players in previous seasons, you know, pretty tough to watch. Game number 1, a gunner on a hard point. As expected, Royal Ravens win this one, go up 1-0 in the series. But then game 2 was really where, well, honestly, where this series started to get interesting. Ravens go up 4-1. You know, they look very, very comfortable once again on this Arklov Peak Search and Destroy, where they've been so good this entire season. You know, I felt like they were almost unbeatable on this map. However, they go up 4-1. They lose a round they really shouldn't have on their defense. They go up 5-3 though. So it looks like they're going to close it out no problem at all. Then they have a really bad couple of rounds, and then it goes to round 11. And in round 11, Ravens had a perfect advantage early on. Dylan got an early kill. Then the Paris guys were pushing up through the trench, and Lucas somehow got a 2-piece that he really shouldn't have got. But then it came down to a 2 versus 3 B-bomb site retake. London were so slow on this retake. By the time they even got to the site, it was too late and they had to hop to the fuse, and Paris Legion ended up winning it. So that was the first round 11 they lost in the series. And well, I think the stat came up on screen that Paris Legion going into round 11s was 5-2. London was 1-4, now 1-6, which, you know, is not the clutch factor you want to see from this squad. However, game 3, they bounced back very impressively indeed. Paris Legion were probably slight favourites going into this map. Then again, Ravens had just beaten Florida Mutineers on this one yesterday. And this was not close at all. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Scrap started off 12-0, had to put that clip on screen, and then he just finished off the game with an absolute tear. He was on an absolute mission this map. Never really seen a team take over a map like this, apart from really the Florida Mutineers, right? So, yeah, Ravens were absolutely crushing it. They outslayed Paris Legion on this map by 48 kills. I'm not exactly sure if that's a domination record or something, but it's got to be up there. Maybe the Florida Mutineers versus Atlanta FaZe game that, well, when they won that championship a while ago was better than this. But the slaying off on the board here, Scraps was triple positive, Waskin was triple positive, and Shawnee was double positive, just chilling with 11 deaths. So yeah, honestly, it was just a fantastic display of domination performance from the Royal Ravens. However, they then go to Hackney Yards Hardpoint, which isn't a great map for them, and Paris win this one 251-73. And then we go to game 5 on the Gunrunner. Definitely a back and forth map, but one that Ravens are pretty good at. I would have expected them to close this out, but once again, it goes down to a round 11. And in round 11 fashion, Paris are the team that makes the clutch up. The 5 guys on the European teams, we always talk about European teams choking on whatever. Of course, Paris has 1 European in Z, but Ravens has all 5. And well, that didn't work out for them. They lose another round 11. So yeah, losing 2 Search and Destroys in a round 11 Paris, in a round 11 fashion to Paris Legion in the series. Pretty unacceptable, quite frankly, and especially given they were, I suppose you could say they were gifted this opportunity, given that New York Subliners lost to the Paris Legion to actually make it to a grand finals again and potentially win one. The fact that they lost to Paris series, you know, pretty underwhelming, frankly, for London, but a huge win from Paris. Don't want to take that away from them at all. They played fantastic this entire tournament, and it was a very, very crucial win for them in terms of the overall standings, getting out of that bottom 4 to the point where they'll be able to start in the winners bracket at champ. So absolutely enormous tournament for the Paris Legion, especially given the fact that there was talk at the start of the tournament when they first lost 250-73 on that map number 1 Ramaza. Of the entire tournament, they, Pac-Man, Nameless was saying, look, they should have made a change. This team didn't make a change. The only team in the CDL to not make a change this entire season. And, well, they don't make a change. And as it turns out, they have a pretty damn good result this event and prove the doubters wrong in that sense. But Ravens just outslayed so heavily over the course of the series. But, of course, it was those 2 round 11s that really came back to bite them. And as Waskin says, we just choked so hard, man. I can't believe it. Worst loss I've had in such a long time. GG's Paris. Hope Zed and Dens can go all the way, former teammates, of course, on the Reciprocity squad. The other semi-final was Dallas Empire versus the Mutineers. This was a matchup that had gone game 5, gone game 4 the last couple of times they'd played. Mutineers, though, had got the better of them. However, this time around, Dallas were an absolute different breed. This team looked so refreshed. Crimsix has kind of let them down slightly in the slaying most recent events. I think he's been very vocal in saying that. However, this time around, he was on fire, and so was the rest of the squad. This was not a close series. Given that Mutineers do this to a lot of teams on a regular basis, just quick 3-0s, winning in the grand finals, no problem at all. 3-0 Atlanta FaZe, 3-0 whoever they want. Dallas just took them to school, and this is a map where, well, Dallas has kind of struggled on against Mutineers in the recent matchups they've played. This time, 250 to 164, no problem at all. Illy was absolutely frying, 8 streak to finish off the game. Then game 2, they go to Piccadilly, a map where Mutineers looked good. They beat London on this earlier in the weekend. They went game 5, it was game 5, round 11 against OGLA and won that one. This time round, Dallas were just absolutely smoking fools. Like, the teamwork was fantastic. Who got that 3-piece where the flashbang came over? And then we go to game 3, domination. Wasn't particularly close again. Yeah, first round was relatively close, but Dallas ended up winning this one, 176 to 152. Never particularly in doubt. A clean 3-0 for the Dallas Empire. The slaying, the teamwork across the board was absolutely outrageous. And on this form, Dallas are the best team in the game, no doubt in my mind. Just the way the whole chemistry and the team cohesion was working, the fact that Crimsix was slaying, the rest of the guys like Illy was stepping up to a level we haven't really seen before. Hook had a fantastic event as well. Shotzzy kind of where you'd expect him. And of course, Clayster at like 28 years old, still dropping a 1.2 against some of the best teams in the game. So honestly, Dallas looked superb this tournament. I don't want to understate that by any means. And Florida still definitely a solid squad, but this series they were not up to par and definitely have something to think about going into, well, the World Championship. And actually, they are playing next weekend of the Toronto home series, as we will look at. I mean, look at this. Hook and Illy, like 1.4s across the board. Like, these aren't necessarily the guys that always step up, right? Like, usually it's Shotzzy putting up the numbers. But if Illy's putting up the numbers and he's like that selfless kind of support player, then, well, you've got a really deadly team on your hands. And as Clayster says, kind of to prepare this discussion on servers in a couple of minutes here, we have bested the Bermuda. What he means by that is, well, the players on the Florida Mutineers are kind of in a triangle around where the server locations are. So pretty much whatever server they play on, Florida have some perceived advantage because they are in the vicinity of where that server is based, whereas the other guys like the Dallas Empire based in Texas have more of a difficult time against that kind of Bermuda triangle, as he says, around the server locations, which makes Florida a good online team. However, this time around, Clayster and the Dallas Empire absolutely smoked him. Then we go into the grand finals, a rematch of game number 1, that being Dallas Empire versus the Paris Legion. And Paris had a great tournament, right? They beat the New York Subliners 3-0. And, well, they got past London Royal Ravens, but this grand finals was not a particularly close affair. Game 1, Hackney Yard, 251-45. And Dallas just continued their absolute reign of terror here at the London home series, winning the Search and Destroy again 6-1. Like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. They took Paris to town, given the fact that Paris had just beaten London Royal Ravens, and Ravens are a good team on Gunrunner, Search and Destroy, don't get me wrong. Paris had then gone and beaten them in a game 5 round 11 fashion, and Empire just take them to school, right? Beat them 6-1, unbelievable. And then they go back to the Gunrunner for the domination, a map that's relatively good for the Paris Legion. They had a good first half, but Empire closed it out 167 to 134. So, you know, pretty underwhelming grand finals, as you might expect, given these teams did match up earlier in the tournament. Still a fantastic result for the Legion overall, but Empire right now, if you are going to make power rankings, which yes, is difficult to do, given things are pretty changeable, haven't seen a couple of teams play in a couple of weekends now, and of course, you know, there's online inconsistencies, I suppose you could say. But definitely, if I had to make a power rankings, Dallas would undoubtedly be my number 1 team right now. This is how it finished off then. Crim with a 1.5, Clay with a 1.5, Shotzzy with a 1.7 over the course of it, and Paris just couldn't get close to them. And, well, this is how it looks overall. Empire run through the tournament 3-1, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0. That's the most dominant tournament victory we've seen this entire season. I think other teams have won with only 3 map losses, so 12-3. This time, Dallas get it done with only 1 map loss. Pretty remarkable. However, this was some of the discussion that came out as a result of it regarding this Paris series. You might look at this and think, damn, Paris managed to beat New York 3-0, but then when they go up against Dallas Empire, they get absolutely smoked both times they played them. 6-1 overall. The only map they won was a Search and Destroy, I believe, in the first series they played. Slack says, I feel bad for Paris. They've been playing well and forced to play on a Texas server, aka GG. They stand 0 chance. It's actually insane. 4 players on 15 ping. and like 5 on 80 ping. So I think Illy is in Canada, but the rest of the guys are based in Texas, and the Paris guys are based in California. And we'll see how, well, Clayster talks about this in just a second here. Hey, we won, so I can't get roasted for being salty, but it's completely unfair that the server selections versus Paris are California, Texas, and Illinois. We veto California because they're 4 in California, so the pros get to like veto the servers that they don't want to play on. I think they I'm pretty sure they released an article saying that they were going to add more servers and add like increased amounts of servers to the veto process. So hopefully make things fairer in terms of what the ping differential is for the squads. But maybe that hasn't quite happened yet. We veto Cali because they're 4 Cali. They veto Illinois because it's the furthest away from all of them. And they're stuck playing on a Texas host, which is right next to the Dallas Empire, right? So that's not ideal. Needs to be more servers spread across the US. Cool, this is going to test my geography. Need a Nevada, I'm guessing Colorado, Tennessee, Missouri, and Georgia servers is what he's saying. Needs to be more spread. Brought this up through the proper channels when online was immediately announced 3+ months ago. From the looks of things, nothing is changing this year, which is sad. That's why I resort to tweeting about it, albeit in a polite way. It's really not acceptable to be playing for this much cash with that much of an advantage, even when it goes my way. So, you know, good for Clayster to actually be saying this when he is winning, right? And as Lamar says, I love how you had to win to be able to get your point across without being called salty by everyone. Gotta take the time to still fight for what I believe is right. The fact that every time someone that didn't win makes a valid, logical point, everyone gets called salty by everyone, which is, yeah, I suppose that's a fair point by accuracy to some degree. Interesting point, right? I definitely think Clayster has a good argument here. The fact that when we come down to a series on champs, a major series at this tournament and also the World Championships, there needs to be an expectation in the minds of the fans and people watching that this is a fair match, right? Like Dallas versus Paris, next time they play, everyone's going to be thinking, well, you know, they have to play on a Texas server given the servers that are available for veto, therefore Dallas are always going to win because they have the best ping. And well, that's a fair point, right? Like you're probably going to win a very small percentage of the time if you're Paris with that much of a disadvantage, which you wouldn't have on LAN. In an ideal world, we have a load more servers, which enables them to choose the best one, which is like in between for both teams. So both teams are on like ish 50 ping, something like that. That would be the ideal world. But yeah, not the case this time around. And that, I imagine that definitely contributed to what we saw in the grand finals here. And it's probably a discussion that needs to be had further forwards, especially with champs on the horizon. But moving on from that to finish off the video then, these were the scoreboards over the weekend. Shotzzy, Ferro, Waskin, Hook. I mean, just look at this. Shotzzy, Hook, Clay, and Illy, and Crim, all 5 in the top 5 of KDs. That is not something you see every day for the Dallas Empire. And as Clay says, anyways, the tournament was so important for the champ seeding. They can now get the top seeding, can Dallas Empire, if they win next weekend. But it's going to be a difficult one because, well, this is what the standings look like right now. Empire move up to 2nd place. The top 4 are set in stone, but Paris Legion move up to 8th place out of the bottom 4. That's crucial for seeding for champs. And, well, this is what next weekend looks like. These are the 2 groups. Then Huntsman Surge, Ultra, OGLA. This is a big one because Ultra versus OGLA are the 2 teams that could potentially get out of that bottom 4. Whereas I'm pretty sure Seattle and LAG are stuck down there in that losers bracket. And then this is the absolute gauntlet of FaZe, Rock Up, Mutineers, and the Dallas Empire on the other side of things. So that's going to be a spicy one. Talk about that later in the week. And as CoD Gamepedia says, both OGLA and Toronto Ultra can get out of the group, and because Empire did beat Legion, that makes that possible. If Dallas does win, which they did, then Toronto would have to win their own home series to jump Paris, and OGLA would have to reach the final. So, you know, Paris aren't playing again, so it is in the hands of Toronto and OGLA to potentially make it out instead of Paris, but it's pretty unlikely. But, you know, we'll have to see what develops next weekend. Thanks for watching the video as always. Intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed, subscribe if you are new. I will see you next time.